spook easily stung.
Have you ever explored the depths of fear? Have you ever wondered what depravity dwells within the imagination of a storyteller that prompts them to exhume horrors untold and expose those horrors to unsuspecting audiences? Some are repulsed, and some are shaken. However, there are those who are invigorated. So to those demented souls, we invite you to journey inward into the dark bowels of human imagination. Press play, and you will discover what's in the podcast.
With the tranquility of rural England shattered by civil war, evil was spawned at a time of strife in the land. Hounding the innocent in violence and terror, this evil man showed no mercy in the pursuit and interrogation of his victims. He was called the WITCHFINDER GENERAL. Vincent Price is the WITCHFINDER GENERAL. Lust and greed were his only gods.
The money from the magistrate. 9 guineas in silver.
Good. Now we can leave.
Never has England looked so beautiful, yet been so violent. So real that you too will fear the WITCHFINDER GENERAL. Be the first to see it. Be the first to talk about it. The WITCHFINDER GENERal.
And welcome back to another edition of What's in the Podcast. And you all thought I was going to miss out on doing a folk horror film for May. Come on, that would just be wrong. But of course, last year we did The Wicker Man and Midsommar. Well, this year I decided let's point our accusing stare at the opposition. Let's focus on those bastards who persecuted the Wiccans, who burned them at the stakes, who hung them and did all these terrible things. And what better movie to point the accusing finger at than the movie that loosely retold the story of one of the most notorious witch hunters, Matthew Hopkins, as famously portrayed by the great Vincent Price in Michael Reeves' WITCHFINDER GENERAL, which came out in 1968. And to talk about this, of course, I had to bring in the person who I consider to be the resident expert on all things Wiccan. That, of course, is the wonderful, the lovely, the divine, or actually the divinely decadent Ruby Tombsday. Welcome back.
Hello, thank you. Glad to be back.
Oh, been too long. Oh, but I'm glad I have you back here for, I guess by the time this airs, I guess May Day will have come and gone. Or I think, when is May Day specifically?
It kind of depends on who you ask. There is a lunar calendar answer, but most of the time May Day for most folks is just observed on May 1st these days.
Oh, okay, so we well past missed it. Okay, so there we go. But either way, May. I just wanted to get my folk horror on during some point of the year, and WITCHFINDER GENERAL was one that always kept lingering in the back of my brain, just because it's one that some sorts of people in the horror circles talk about it, but then other ones don't. But usually when you bring up Vincent Price, I'm always amazed by the amount of people who don't know about this movie. So I felt like we had to do our part to kind of let people know that this is easily one of his, in my opinion, and hopefully one of yours, one of his best movies, period.
I absolutely agree. And as a matter of fact, it was the one that Vincent Price himself considered his favorite performance, his best performance.
Which, as we're going to get into, is going to be a big deal because of all the crazy shit that he went through during the making of this one. So that's saying a lot. That is saying.
Yep.
So to begin, I figure the best way we should approach this one, because this is one that is very clearly loosely based on actual real historical events that occurred, I believe, what was it, early to mid 17th century, correct?
Yes. The opening narration at the top of the film, it mentions 1647.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, which is saying something, because Matthew Hopkins, the titular Witchfinder General, he Vincent Price maybe delivered a great performance, but if you want to be technical, it was not accurate casting, because Matthew Hopkins, if memory serves, he operated pretty much only into his 30s. He was still a relatively young man when he passed.
Yeah, he passed in his mid-30s. Rest in pieces.
Or
he only had like 3.
Yeah, what does it say nowadays? RIH, roast in hell. I think that's what we say now.
Yeah, he only had like 3 years in his career, really, that he was active.
Yeah. must have really been eating his Wheaties, figuratively speaking, because according to record, he was the most successful witch hunter of his time. I think in during that time period, it said that about 500 witches were captured and executed, and he was responsible for about 300 of them.
Yep.
So the stats say.
They say there's three kinds of myths, truths, lies, damn lies, and statistics. Um,
I'm saving that.
um, but yeah, and then of those that passed during this time period, it's like 85% or so women,
Mhm.
um, which small surprise given the stereotypes, etc. Um, but yeah, I mean, he there's no supporting what he did, but he was his work ethic, I guess, was pretty solid. He showed up,
Yeah, and he wasn't even officially sanctioned by, well, I mean, this was during a time of civil war within England around this time. I mean, it was I'm not 100% on the politics of the era, but I definitely know that it was definitely a politically turbulent time in England, if I'm not mistaken.
That was during the Civil War between King Charles I and Cromwell. The whole papist, anti-papist kind of thing. Papist versus royalists.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I
so
think
yeah,
yeah, so we should probably set the stage, like kind of talking about the political climate that led um to Hopkins. So, all right, so do we know precisely what the divide was about? Was it just a simple case of just, the people against the royals?
I think that's really more what it was. However, the set dressing that they hung on the entire thing was all about being, the Catholic Church versus not being Catholic Church. So that you would use the excuse of, well, the Catholic Church is in and of itself, it's sorcery, it's paganism because of the system of saints, because of the papacy. So they considered the Catholics or the papists, they would refer to them as idolaters and
Oh,
pagans. Whereas the other side of things was like, well, this is the first church of that was, ordained by Christ. Peter, you shall be my rock. This whole thing.
hmm.
Um, so it became like so many wars did, particularly in Western Europe, ostensibly about religion, but really religion as an excuse to, go make war.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So
easy to do horrific deeds so long as you make an erroneous claim that God is all for it. I mean,
right.
that's how the Crusades happen. That's how uh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's definitely how the Crusades happen. I mean, that's how a lot of unfortunate conflicts happen. Hell, I mean, that's how the shit happening nowadays happens where people erroneously saying like, "Oh, God's for it. God's
Mm-hmm.
totally for it." That's oh yeah, it's an accurate Bible verse, I mean, I heard it, from our great Reverend Samuel Jackson. He's a reverend.
I saw.
He's a reverend. He played one in Death by Temptation.
I was going to say, well, I was in a LARP where I played a priest too, but that doesn't make me one. Although I actually do have an ordination, but that's a whole other story. um, yeah, I mean, that whole gambit with our administration has been going since the first time, where he actually had, sold his own special Bibles that he could put stories about himself in. There was a whole
Mhm.
page basically trying, canonizing the Papaya Pinochet and
The
added this as a page to the Bibles that he was selling with his name on them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like it's very much clearly the intent with carefully dodging the words that would say it outright. But yeah, and then that's the same argument that is used by fundamentalism against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because they say that church is cursed because they added books to the Bible, although they didn't. They just have an additional book that's a separate document entirely. Um, but yeah, so I find it funny that he's gonna he's this uh, deified figure that they've created for themselves, and yet he's going to break the same rules that they've been crying about for 100 years.
Yeah.
because he added to the book, which you're not supposed to add to the document. But then again, that's the whole Nicene Council. We could skip all that. That keeps happening over and over. But
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, they say the people who deny history are doomed to repeat it, but I think it's safe to say we're aware of the history. They just repeat it because they're like going, "Hey, sounds like fun." The people in power just keep going, "Ooh, that sounds fun. I might try it and see if I can do it better."
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ain't that the way? I mean, and in many ways, that's kind of what happened because in the 50s, that's when we had the communist hunts, which were pretty much the exact operated the exact same way. Confess and be condemned, or don't confess and be condemned. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's kind of how it operated during that time, and that's just the thing and that's kind of especially when it came to a lot of the torture devices that Hopkins used. That's how it just wound up being. It's like he came up with these weird arcane ways of torturing someone to try to get them to confess. But ultimately, if they confess, they were either going to be executed or sometimes even worse, exiled, or just have their assets stripped away from them. So it's sometimes it's even a fate worse than death.
Yep.
Hmm.
Well, so many of the things, it shows up repeatedly in the film, but so many of the things that have been used as witch trials were guaranteed to end badly no matter what. There wasn't a win condition. Like the trial by water, which we see in one of the early scenes in the
Hmm.
film. Trial by water is tie you up, throw you in the pond or the river or whatever they have handy, and if you sink and die, well, you're innocent. But if you call out or you swim or you try to save yourselves, then obviously it's Satan intervening. So then they pull you out of the water and put you to death in a different gruesome way.
Yeah, it seems like it was just their way of just like, and because unfortunately it all goes back to that stupid notion of, well, I've saved your soul, so I just sent you to heaven if you're innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's always been in a way. It's kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen the play Sister Mary Ignatius Explains It All for You, but the whole thing about that one is that it comes to a point where Sister Mary shoots someone when she asks one of the characters comes out as gay, and she asks, well, did you go to confession recently? He said, yeah, actually I just did. Bang. And she just goes, I sent him to heaven.
Yep.
Right there.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And then we see it on our continent too, as early as the 17th century, as well, with Salem and everything revolving around it. And really, what it comes down to in that case is, once again, it's being painted and pastiche as religion, let's condemn the evil, when really it was a land grab.
Mm.
It again comes back to another Lex Luthor plot. It's a real estate deal. Um, because some of these independent women actually were landed people. They owned their own land, and it was a pretty pivotal and essential piece of property in that region. And they couldn't get her to move. They couldn't try taking her land through legal means. So, well, let's declare her a witch, because that
Hmm.
always ends with a killing. And then then the property is up for the church can take over because the church is government. And
Mm.
yeah, so that whole hysteria largely got kicked off just because of trying to get land back from evil women, who were just evil for being single and landed.
Yeah. Oh no. And a lot of times they were single because by misfortune the husband died, because by that time,
Right.
yeah, by that time it was just, it was filthy time, so they died by just disease, and the life expectancy was of course slim. So it was easy. So unfortunately the poor woman gets targeted because they had the misfortune to be a widow.
Yep.
Or
Well, she
the
outlived her husband. That's not natural, although yes,
yeah,
it
oh,
actually it is.
it's
But
ah,
yeah, so yeah.
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 And this
Yeah.
would, and I'm again don't have a history book in front of me, but I think this would also be around the time when a lot of them left England to come to America specifically to practice, to quote unquote, for their religious freedom. And it's like, no, no, you just hate the fact that people were saying, God, you're all actually, what was it? Susie Izzard said, how Actually, no, it wasn't Susie Izzard. It was Robin Williams who said like, and the Puritans, our ancestors, people so uptight that the British said, "Get the fuck out."
I can actually support that notion, by the way. And I crack up because so many people say, "Oh, my ancestors came over in the Mayflower." My mother's did, but the reason they were on the boat is they were two brothers, Gould brothers, who were horse thieves,
Oh,
and they were running away from the noose. Now, it wasn't running away from the noose for religious persecution. It was running away because they were stealing horses, about to get caught. So they took the first boat out,
huh.
and this is what they ended up with.
Okay. I mean, I hope they put on a good, yeah, I guess they put on a good show. They were like, oh yeah, yeah, mea culpa and all that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally,
my
totally
papa plays
sorry.
dominoes better than your papa plays dominoes, and I can prove it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, obviously it worked out well for the Gould family. They became they were up there with the Rockefellers, etc., for the longest time.
Mhm.
Not my branch of that family, of course. but
So Matthew Hopkins, so would it be safe to say that he was putting on just a good show that he was, for all intents and purposes, was the portrayal of him in Witchfinder General in terms of his principles, did the film actually reflect those properly, or was the real Matthew Hopkins legitimately devout in his endeavors?
there's no way to say from anything I've seen in the historical record with certainty whether he was actually pious, whether he was actually the zealot or not. But I think that he found a way he found a business model that worked and ran with it.
Hmm.
And I really think that was it. He was I look at he was a sadist with a business plan. That's really
Okay.
my take on it. I really think that was it. Just a sadist with a business plan.
It's a
Um,
great way to put it, actually.
yeah, because he was never actually sanctioned by the properly sanctioned by the church.
Hmm. Yeah,
He was pseudo sanctioned by the crown.
which is how he was able to get away with public executions and not be tried in any sort of court of law.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and well, okay, so he was sanctioned by the crown, and I guess King Charles was very much always trying to give off the righteous thing of like, I am one with God, that here I am smiting the wicked. So, and here is my sword. His name is Matthew Hopkins.
Theocracy by any other name.
Hmm. Precisely. So obviously the movie Witchfinder General doesn't really set out to be an accurate portrayal. Well, I mean, for clearly not. I mean, this one definitely does not end according to history, because in this instance, I mean, uh, I guess it's safe to say. I mean, normally in the case of this, I would have said, don't bother with a synopsis. But given how much this deviates from the actual history, let's go ahead. Go ahead and give me a synopsis, a brief synopsis of Witchfinder General.
All right. Well, this sets up and fine American international pictures tradition. It really is kind of like the almost essential oil version of like a late Hammer, early Amicus, that kind of right in the middle there.
Yeah, this was
Um,
done by Tygon, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. Although interesting enough, I make the joke about American International, but American International actually did have some finger in the pie. They
Mm.
were financiers for the movie,
Yeah, and I
so
believe
they weren't
and they
necessarily
had Vincent Price under contract
right.
for this, so that's how they were able to get him.
Yeah. So the thrust of the film is our title character, definitely not our hero, um, is like we said, the itinerant roving witchfinder for hire, kill who needs killing for a few coin. And I say coin here. Guineas actually didn't exist until an additional like 30 years after the movie takes place.
Oh
So
wow.
they keep referring to guineas all the way through the movie, and those didn't exist in the time frame they set up for themselves. But anyway, for gold, um, he travels from town to town, seeking out witches, just making sure that they're going to get a conviction one way or the other, or if not, they're innocent but they're dead now, so there's no one to complain.
Mm.
Um, And on the opposite side of where our conflict goes eventually is you have a royalist army loyal to King Charles I, and centering around this one coronet. Oh gosh, I forget his name now all of a sudden.
I believe his name is Richard, played by Ian Ogilvy.
There we are.
Yeah, Richard Marshall, played by Ian Ogilvy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Um, and they set him up kind of as the dashing hero, the not quite knight, but dashing army man, with the love who happens to be the foundling of the local priest.
Yeah.
And of course, they set them up as well. The village is turning on them, calling them papists, and trying to get them thrown to the wolves, either to Cromwell's army or to the Witchfinder. The Witchfinder ends up being the one that we end up in conflict with.
Yeah.
They do, like all of these things do, and kill the Friar Tuck character pretty early.
Yeah. And
Um,
they make it linger too. I mean, that the thing about this movie is that for now, this one, when it came out, or actually in development of this movie, the script in early drafts was going to be it was going to be even harsh, even worse than what we got. But they had to send it through the BBFC, the British Censorship Board Commission. They had to keep sending that script to it, and they kept getting sent back multiple times. And there were supposed to be scenes with a lot more grisly, horrific torture, because the writer and now, for anyone who looks on IMDb, no, it's not that Tom Baker who wrote this. No, not that Tom Baker. Even I was going like, wait, Tom Baker? Yeah, exactly. I was like, is it that Tom Baker? It's like, no, it is not the guy from The Freak Maker. I don't know what else he's known for.
I don't know, something Sinbad.
Yeah, something Dungeons and Dragons, something Little Britain. But no, not that Tom Baker. But no, Michael Reeves and writer Tom Baker, they wanted to write something that it was clear that their intention with this movie was to be less about historical accuracy and more to kind of talk about for it to be a parable about the abuse of power and the hypocrisy of those in power who abuse it in order to pretty much gain their own agenda. And that's kind of where we are when we meet Matthew Hopkins. They make it a point to, and also by extension his assistant Stern, I believe his name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who that is, yeah, John Stern, that is accurate to history, is that Hopkins did have a second, and it was someone named John Stern who pretty much stayed with him throughout their entire career.
What I like kind of how they portrayed John Stern's character is they made him every bit the sadist, but he was just open about it.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. And I love that dynamic because it kind of makes you ponder, like, who is really worse here in this estimation? The one who's completely overt in his sadism, or the one who hides it under a veneer of righteousness? So it leaves you to judge that.
Yeah. I gotta say that this is, in my estimation, the single most viciously evil character I've ever seen Vincent Price play.
That's saying something too.
Right. I mean, he plays fantastic villains, but they're always a little tongue in cheek. They're always a little
operatic. Sometimes they're romantic. I mean, I definitely would say his character from House of Wax is definitely a much more poetic, tragic character. But then all of a sudden you turn around and his character from Theater of Blood is an absolute. I take so much catharsis in his character. I love Theater of Blood, and in fact, I'm going to announce this here, people. I will be doing an episode on that somewhere down the line, because that movie, if you all have not seen Theater of Blood, that movie is a freaking riot. You will see Vincent Price do things in that movie that you never ever would have thought he would ever do, and that man voiced a goddamn Moriarty rat. Okay?
Yep.
And even then, you are not prepared for the things you'll see him do in Theater of Blood.
Theater of Blood is fantastic. And, you know, Theater of Blood is a better version of the movie Popcorn, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
if you took Theater of Blood and decided we're going to make this PG-13, you've got Popcorn.
mhm. Yeah. And by popcorn, of course, we're talking about the wonderful '90s slasher
Yeah,
film. Yeah.
and I do love that movie too. But
Oh, I
I did
adore
that one with
popcorn.
I did that one with Shanna Stoker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, cool. I can't believe I missed that. Breaks my heart. I mean, I love popcorn and I love Shannon Stoker. That's great.
yeah.
Love that one. Yeah, one day I do. Now,
Um,
that's another one I do want to spotlight one day because I think Popcorn is just a wonderful film.
it
So
deserves so much more love. Yeah,
absolutely, and I am happy that it is getting more love more and more as every year passes. So that makes me happy. But in the case of Vincent Price, and actually now I'm thinking about it, this really is kind of like the first time we're really doing a spotlight with Vincent Price in this movie. So for those not in the know, the behind the scenes on this was turbulent as hell, primarily because Michael Reeves he was a relatively young director who kind of cut his teeth on other horror films. Prior to this, a film called The Sorcerers, and he wanted Donald Pleasance for this role. That's who he wanted for it. But unfortunately, for reasons he could not get Donald Pleasance. I think it was either out of the price range or I think he just wasn't available. And begrudgingly, and I think it was because of the producers, they said, well, we've got Vincent Price, you're taking Prince and Vincent Price. So begrudgingly, him and writer Tom Baker had to rewrite the script to accommodate Vincent Price's acting style. And in a I'm sorry, I would have cold cocked this director if he ever said this shit to my face. This is peak unprofessionalism, people. You know, you got lemons, make the fucking lemonade. Uh, Vincent Price arrives right off the tarmac. Michael Reeves comes to meet him and balls out, says to his face, you were not my first choice. You were never my choice, but I am stuck with you." And Vincent Price, cool as a cucumber, says, "I've made 84 films. What have you done?" And then Michael Reeves very promptly says, "I made two good ones."
at which point Vincent Price laughed in his face.
Yeah, but Vincent Price, consummate kept the profession. He kept it as professional as he possibly could, but unfortunately, Michael Reeves did not make it easy. One notorious incident on set, where Hopkins is supposed to fire off a flintlock pistol while on horseback, and unfortunately, now logistically, that is not going to work because he's firing off this pistol in the vicinity of a horse's ears. That horse is going to freak out immediately, but Michael Reeves did not
Mm-hmm.
give a shit. And unfortunately, Vincent Price did, and surely enough, he got bucked from the horse. Fortunately, Vincent Price, being the expert that he was not horribly injured, but he did have to go home for the end of the day because of it. But basically, they were butting heads every left, right, and center during the making of this. But the wonderful epilogue to the whole story. Now, here's another thing. Karma kind of bit Michael Reeves in the ass because only a couple months after this movie came out, Michael Reeves fell ill and ultimately died.
Wow.
Yeah, but Vincent Price, in a very classy fashion, watched the movie and admitted this is some of the best work I've ever done. And he finally saw what the director was going for and kind of came, in many ways, it's kind of what Shelley Duvall felt when she finally saw the finished product of The Shining, where she looked at it and realized this is what we were doing. And it's like, I see it now. Doesn't excuse the behavior, but at least
Right.
it's the classic adage. Pain is temporary, art is forever, kind of thing.
I used to have a T-shirt that it was done in the style of medieval manuscript illumination,
Hmm.
and it was Dore Eterna, Gloria, Gloria Temporare, Gloria Eterna, Cicatrices Virginis Placent.
Hmm.
Basically, it's pain is temporary, glory is eternal, chicks dig scars.
Okay. But speaking of now, Now you were telling me that Hopkins he kind of logged a lot of the modes of torture. Now I believe he had written an account which was funny enough called The Discovery of Witches. That was like apparently one of the tomes that he did where he logged down like a lot of his methods. But you said there was another tome that was written, Malleus Maleficarum, I believe he called it.
Yeah, the Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, and that actually predates Hopkins by right about 200 years.
Really?
Yeah, this was written, I want to say 1467. Let me look at my notes. 1486. I was off.
Okay.
Um, and this was written, but there's some argument about who actually wrote the Malleus Maleficarum. There's a lot of myth about it, a whole lot of myth about it. Now, I do have a translation of the Malleus that I'm going to be working through. That's actually one of the ones printed by. There are like four main translations of the text. Of course, being a 15th century text, translations vary. So when people are familiar with the Malleus Maleficarum, they're usually familiar with it from B horror movies or from the supernatural TV show or something like this. So the perception of the Malleus Maleficarum was this was an official text written by the church on how to hunt and test and execute witches, when really it was actually decried by the Inquisition almost immediately after it was printed.
Hmm.
It was never accepted by the church. And it's largely an angry, I'll show them kind of screed by the person who they believe actually wrote it, which is most modern Heinrich Kramer, basically for being kicked out of the church and told, and apparently flubbing and failing pretty horribly at some witch trials where just kind of botched the whole thing so badly. So he decided to write a book to prove how good at this he actually was. So yeah, it was the Malleus Maleficarum was never accepted by any church.
Wow.
The Inquisition itself decried the text. People consider the Malleus Maleficarum as being what led to the Inquisition. The Inquisition was already happening. The book came out after that. Well, during that, but after the Inquisition had already become a thing. There's a lot of misconception about it. It's also a lot of people refer to it as the Witch Hunter's Bible, and I'm thinking that it's actually a sacred text. The Malleus Maleficarum is not a sacred text.
Safe to assume Hopkins did not take his methods from the Malleus Maleficarum at all.
He did not take methods from that, probably, but what he did do is kind of hide behind it and appeal to authority, because the book was ancient. The people he was talking to, none of them were literate, because at this point, particularly for the Catholic Church, mass church services, mass in the case of the Catholic Church, were still conducted in Latin, which is the language that was not taught to the layperson. Since they didn't have access to the language, they didn't have access to the rites. So the book could say anything the priest needed it to say, because the people who were kept illiterate wouldn't possibly know better. And you can't question the clergy, because the clergy is speaking on behalf of God. You can't question God. So of course this person has to be right.
So they could bullshit
Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, so they could bullshit that they learned Latin, so they can say, "Oh yeah, I totally learned it." It says like, "Yeah, 71 dark-haired virgins, totally, yeah, that's what it said." When it actually says like 71 crystal clear raisins, you know. So
no, it says right here, 3 of a kind beats a flush.
Yeah.
But yeah, so nobody that he was talking to was going to be able to read the book or have access to the book, because books, especially in codex form, the actual bound books like we know them now, as opposed to scrolls, were incredibly expensive, ridiculously expensive, and generally only royals and the church could afford to have them written. Movable type was just becoming a thing.
And a lot of
So
and a lot of them were bound in like fine materials. I mean sometimes a lot of times actual gold was used for the bindings and the like. So a lot of times those books are valuable because they were just using very fine materials to adorn them in, just to kind of
yeah,
make
and
them look as resplendent as possible. I mean, famously, the Great Gospel of Columkill, that sucker had like gold was stolen because of all the finery that was all that it was adorned in.
or the Codex Gigas.
Hmm.
Another huge. Literally, this case huge. I mean, the book is like so, and massive book. Um, that's I'm going to do a whole Tombstay Times just on the Codex Gigas because there's so much information and creepy stuff about it. It's beautiful. It's
Wonderful.
got a real Hope Diamond kind of a background.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these books would be prohibitively expensive because they were so expensive. The layperson, even the local governments, etc., would not have them, like your mayors or your chancellors or things like this in a region, your seneschals. None of these people would have access to most of these books either. So he could say anything he wanted, but he could hold up this 200-year-old book and say, "Well, look here," and there's, "Oh, well, he's the expert."
Yeah.
And eventually, he did become titled the Witchfinder General, so he was recognized by the leadership, even if not technically sanctioned, depending on who you ask.
Hmm.
So it's that whole appeal to authority thing, and he knew how to ride that, like William Castle knew how to ride a gag. You know, that was
Hmm.
his gimmick.
Yeah. I mean, the only downside is with Hopkins is that his gimmicks unfortunately got people killed, and he didn't seem to give a damn about that because in the end, he felt he was right with God doing it.
Right.
Yeah. Though Hopkins, as portrayed in the movie, they do a pretty damn good job hinting at the idea that Hopkins legitimately does not actually follow this, but he just puts on a hell of a show anyway. Because we have now I gotta say this, the character of Richard, that he is a true blue character. There's one moment in this movie. Now we're kind of getting it. Actually, let's go ahead and start with this. Now you have Sarah, who obviously has a lot of affection for her charge with John Lowes, who and while Richard is away still fighting this war, and unfortunately, Witchfinder General has arrived and is immediately like going to start persecuting Lowes. Sarah, man, the trials this poor woman goes through, and she puts herself through it for the sake of other to protect other people. Well, she gives herself to Hopkins to, for all intents and purposes, exchanges sexual favors to protect him. He's already in prison, but she's trying to protect him from the trials. The because she knows damn well that he's not going to survive these. So she's
Right.
yeah. So she goes to bed with Hopkins in the hopes that he will be lenient on Lowe's, but unfortunately, because of Stern, and incidentally, anyone who has not seen this movie does have a essay warning. There is a pretty damn now. Got to give it to Reeves. He films it in Game of Thrones Ramsay Bolton vision, where it's a pretty intense scene, but they do a good cutaway. You don't need more than that, but it's still a rough scene to watch. But
Right.
basically, something's in it, and it rhymes with grape. Um, or fuck it. I did a whole episode on it. Yeah, there's a rape scene in here, people. Um,
Right.
yeah. Um, and when Hopkins finds out about this, unfortunately, he reads it as, oh, well, she was serving herself up to him too. I thought she was only going to be righteous with me, and very promptly goes back on his word. And poor, poor, poor Bishop Lowe's, poor guy ends up, yeah, yeah. Did he get hanged, or I think he got drowned? I think he got hanged.
I don't remember, and I just watched this again today.
Yeah, well, I think either
Um,
way, well, he
no,
got
I
hung. He definitely got hung alongside two others, and I remember they got hung off a bridge. They
Yeah,
definitely.
this was the trial by water.
Oh, the trial by water. That's right. Okay, so they got dunked.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, this whole segment is just freaking rough. But I think my favorite moment with Richard, and the thing that really told me that this guy's a hero that I actually can get behind on anything he does after this, when he arrives back and he finds Sarah, and Sarah it's a wrenching scene. She breaks down and just confesses to him what she did and how angry she is that it was all in vain. I love the fact that Richard doesn't slut shame her. He doesn't uh like treat her like shit. No, very
No
promptly
victim blaming.
no victim blaming. He takes her to the altar and immediately makes his marital vows right there to her. And I was like, that is freaking classy. That to me was like, this person legitimately loves you because he understands why you did it, and he knows that everything you did because of love and to protect somebody. And that is not something you should shame someone for. So immediately afterwards, I was on board with the character of Richard. Anything he did, I was like, fuck yeah, you do it, man. You do it. Beat the shit out of Stern in the pub. Fuck yeah, do it. Which
That
I
was a
think,
good fight too.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, but the one problem with starting a fight in a pub is that most people watching it have no context, and immediately the first thing they're going to do is protect their favorite customer.
Right.
Yeah, which is how Stern gets away with it.
You take the time frame the movie is set in, and then you take the time frame in which the movie was released, and you look at both of these, and neither of these time frames could in storytelling allow these characters to be heroes or to
Mm.
be protagonists. The fact that Richard beds her early in the film, the night that they get permission from John Lowe's to marry. They're still not married yet, but you probably he did tell you to go straight to bed, right? Yes, wise man, let's go. um, you get that scene, and that there would be enough to condemn in most storytelling the outside of Bond in the 60s. And then all storytelling in the 17th century, well, that's obviously that's not, they can't be our pious hero. That's terrible. But here we get a storyline that says, you know what, that's ridiculous. These people are trying to do all of the right things. And we're not going to put a moment worth of shade on them for any of that. Nobody in this storyline, with the possible exception of John Lowe's, nobody in this entire movie comes out clean.
Oh no,
Nobody.
not at all. Not at all.
And I love storytelling like that. That is one of the things that I do really love this movie for. I like imperfect heroes.
Mhm.
Although I agree with everything Richard does for the entire film.
He still in the
Um,
end shirks his duty because he is doing something that is well, he was put on a mission specifically to hunt down King Charles because they say King Charles is now on the run
yeah,
around this time, and they put him on a mission specifically to hunt him down. That is a mission that is bigger than any of them, but he forgoes it because he finds out that Sarah's in danger, that the Witchfinder, and even more so that he wants revenge on Hopkins and on Stern for what they did to her. Uh,
yep,
but he forgoes that duty, and he knows that he's basically risking a court martial, and even worse because deserters around that time pretty much got shot
yep,
at the very end. But he was putting it all on the line because he felt because there was something that was more important to him
yep,
in the grand scheme. So yeah, I mean, it's no, you're right. No one's going to come out clean on that. But then again, that's the beauty part about horror. Horror doesn't lie to you. Horror doesn't say that someone goes through
right.
a terrible happenstance and then they're going to come out 100% clean at the other hand. No. In fact, another thing, the ending of this was supposed to end with, well, it ends with Richard going ham on Hopkins with a freaking axe, just wailing on him. And Lord knows that was just satisfying to look at. But one of his fellow soldiers was supposed to shoot him. But I think due to, I think, a lack of continuity, they only had one flintlock pistol in the continuity. So they were like, well, it wouldn't make sense for him to shoot Richard and then shoot Hopkins or euthanize Hopkins. So they decide, well, you know what? Let's just have them euthanize Hopkins, and then we just have both Richard and Sarah, just be completely fucked in the head by
Yep.
the end of it.
Yeah, I love that scene.
Mm.
Absolutely love it because it is, again, we're talking 1968 here. So for a movie to have that whole screaming mad into the void as your exit scene in the film. This is just something we didn't get yet. You start seeing some of that in the grindhouse stuff in the early to mid 70s. You see that start to show up a little bit there, where you can have these, oh crap, that didn't end the way we wanted it to, endings. And I love that. That's one of the things I miss about films like that. So I love the fact that we get them, that they are broken as they should be by these experiences. They are up to their nostrils in it through the entire movie. There's no break. There's no real respite. I mean, it goes on shortly after they introduce the couple. Things start to go off the rail almost immediately, and it just stays that way all the way through the film. And I love that they go to credits with leaving you with that tension.
Yeah, with
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, with this freeze frame of Sarah just screaming, pretty much doing a Sally Hardesty at the tail end of it, just doing just screaming bloody murder, just seeing the man that she loves gone completely feral, screaming at his subordinates, screaming, "You took him away from me," because he wanted to deliver the death blow, but here his guys euthanized Hopkins, and he's just it's just the fact that he had this bloodlust that he wanted to satisfy, and he had this, and the fact that he was resorting to full-blown sadism. He could have just buried the axe into Hopkins' head and be done with it, but he just kept wailing on him in pure feral fashion, just trying to make him feel every ounce of pain possible. And it is just hard to watch, because we have seen that Richard was such a good man, driven to madness because of the cruelty of people in power. And I think that's the ultimate lesson of this movie, is just the idea that the good people get torn apart and turned mad because of the tyranny of those in power. So I think with that in mind, I think about this. Kind of goes back to just a couple weeks ago, I did the movie Lords of Chaos. And I talked about my general disdain for biopics, because a lot of times they deliberately fudge facts just for the sake of dramatic license or anything like that. I feel I would put this one kind of in the same vein as a movie like The Social Network, where that one deliberately goes tongue in cheek in their take on the story, specifically to tell an important, to have a grander lesson that we should take away from it, that it doesn't matter if it's accurate to the history. What matters is that this is the lesson that we are trying to teach here. And I think in the case of Witchfinder General, this is pretty much about the hypocrisy of power.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely, because everyone is at the mercy of somebody else's power all the way through. The only pure character that the only person we don't eventually see corruption in at some level is John Lowes. He even wishes that God have mercy on Hopkins' soul as his last words before he died. He's still living his vows right at that very last. But man, to some level, everybody else is some kind of corrupt or corrupted by the powers that be. So it's kind of cool in that regard, that you can't point at the film and go, oh, okay, they're taking the royalist side, or they're taking the roundhead side. No. Like, this whole thing was horrific. This whole thing is stupid. It's stupid, and people were doing stupid things because of it. And that is the entire thrust of the situation for everyone in the film. And the film, I love that consistency.
Yeah, and even more so is that you think the film's going to go certain unconventional ways. There's a point in the movie where Hopkins bails on Stern, like balls out, betrays him. And you think, now most other movies, it would be that, yeah, and Stern does get away from the Roundheads. You think Stern's going to get it, but then no, Stern's able to get away. And you think that he is going to go on a big revenge bid against Hopkins for betraying him. And it gets close, but almost immediately Hopkins is able to completely for lack of a better word, seduce Stern to be his lapdog again. And a lot of it is just because Stern is the kind of person who is willing to forego his principles for the sake of again, keeping hold of what power he has.
Right.
Yeah, and that just shows, and that right there is the full-blown hypocrisy when it comes to the pursuit of power. You're willing to forego, what you claim to be your principles when in the end, so long as you got one advantage over the people you deem lesser than you, you're going to always forego your principles after that.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is what we see time and time again with um, the other soldiers in the Roundhead army, what we see with the local mayors of the individual villages, what we see with Stern, is all of them is like, okay, well, I've got this person who I'm unfortunately under. Well, I'm going to go kick that downhill.
Mm.
I'm going to go hold my power over somebody else under me who's powerless to stop me, and so I can relieve some of this suffering that I'm going through by having to do all the things I don't like. And is it inherently immature? Yes, but it's also inherent human nature. Good, bad, or ugly, this is kind of how we work, unless we work against it.
Hmm.
You know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, primarily. And unfortunately, it's because of the corruption of those in power, it ends up having a trickle down. Funny enough, the only trickle down effect that is accurate and that is true and that is pretty much a guarantee is that all the sludge that is spewed from those in power trickles down onto the people underneath them, and it poisons them in ways that unfortunately a lot of times those in power typically never see, and for the most part are never affected by. But I mean, poverty, persecution ends up making monsters of people who have no power because they rage out, they scream, they uh, pretty much forego their humanity because of unfortunate, because what else can they do
Right.
at this point? I mean, even Richard, who is I think he's a captain. He himself has some kind of power, but unfortunately, because it doesn't matter. Even his status in the army doesn't guarantee that anyone's going to get his back when he needs them.
Yeah, he is um, categorically left to his own devices through the entire thing. So
Mm,
his only choices are do the right thing or follow orders. Um,
mm.
and even when he decides to go off book, I mean, he gets a couple people to ride off with him that have to listen to his orders. But that's the full extent of his the power that doesn't come off of his own hands. I love it. I love it. And like you said, there's the scene by the docks where they, obviously King Charles has escaped across the channel to France.
Mm.
And that movie should go, there should at least be a conversation. Okay, well, what do we do now? How do we get after that? And it's like, nope, I got better things to do. That's the last
Yeah.
we see of the King Charles subplot, you know.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, fortunately, it's funny. Anytime you mention Charles the First to me, or you mention Oliver Cromwell, my brain immediately goes to the Monty Python song. I mean, just like,
I, Cromwell, Lord Protector of England, Puritan, born in 1599 and died in 1658.
September.
only Monty Python can make a freaking whole song that is just all about just the capture and execution of King Charles the First. It's just for no other reason, just because they're going to do it in a funny voice, and that's all it's what the hell, Monty Python.
That was one of my favorite things on their contractual obligation album, Monty Python's contractual
That's
obligation
right.
album.
That's where it was originally came out. I remember I listened to it on the Monty Python Sings album. That's where I first heard it. Yeah, kind of thing. So just now, whenever I hear, or what was the first little thing? It was like,
The most interesting thing about King Charles I is that he was 5'6" tall at the start of his reign, but only 4'8" tall at the end of it.
see, that's why I never really think. The one good thing about historical anything is that you don't have to worry about uh, unresolved plot points because history already resolved the particular plot points. In this case, it's like,
Yeah.
well, what happened with King Charles? Oh, well, read your history book. That's what happened with him. That's what happened with him. Kind of thing. So, I suppose another thing we can kind of get into, especially in terms of just some of the tortures they portray here. And man, one torture which seems so simple, and Lord knows, as a fan of Saw, to the point where I've got a tattoo of it, um, there is this one torture which Hillary Heath is selling so hard, and it's just the pin torture, just the pin torture. I mean, they're showing it. I don't know how they pull off the illusion that they're sticking a big ass pin into her back, and she's just selling that agony. And I was just like, and I'm just like thinking, like, what the hell is that pin touching that is making her scream so loud? Like, is it touching her spine? Is it touching her ribs? Like, what is that thing touching that is making her scream so hard?
Yeah, they really dealt really nice, and there's some terrible like hammer style blood
Oh yeah,
in various points in this film, and you know,
bright red clamato
oh
juice.
geez, yeah, it's so much, which is common for these films,
Oh yeah,
but um, I find myself paying no attention to that whatsoever with the pricking, which was one of the actual methods that was used for trials. But the absolute sick glee that John Stern has performing the trial, and then the absolute swing for the back fences delivery given by her, you so wrapped up in it, and as cheesy as the film could be, it's one of those where even now I'm sitting there going, oh, geez,
yeah.
oh, and it's not nearly as bad as a lot of the things that we have watched and enjoyed. Like, it throws back, well, not back, it throws forward. But like the meat hook scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Oh yeah,
you know, you are convinced that you watched her go on that hook and all of the gore and thing that your brain has so thoroughly plugged that in for you that you're convinced you've seen all of this. And then if you go back and you actively watch the scene and try to pay attention, you realize that no, you see him pick her up, you see her facial expression when he moves her down, you never see the hook
yeah.
after that. There's none of the things that your brain told you just saw, did you see? And so it's a similar dynamic with the pricking. You don't see a lot of it, but what you see is incredibly convincing and successfully disturbing.
Yeah, because when
One
you
of the
think
ways they
about,
would go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, when you see a needle go into skin, you don't see blood. You don't see anything like that. I think the thing that makes anytime you see a needle going into skin, the thing that makes that work is seeing how far the needle goes. That's what makes people uneasy because if you're seeing that needle, it's kind of like that one bit in the dentist where the dentist like just puts the needle all the way up to the hilt, and they show how long that needle is and how far he's pretty fucking thing through the hilt practically. When in reality, you just need to like put the little tip, just the tip, in there. So just seeing the pricking being done where they're sliding that needle deep into her back, and it's just uncomfortable. It's
Yeah,
uncomfortable. Yeah, and that is a recognized torture. That was something that they actually did.
yes, it
And
is one of the things that was common.
to what
Um,
to what end? I mean, what was it meant to prove specifically?
to prove that, oh, look, we caught ourselves a witch. Because
Okay.
the problem is, again, we're back to the whole catch-22 type situation.
Hmm.
If it is indeed a devil's mark, you can tell because you shove the implement into their skin and pull it back out, and there's no blood, and they don't cry out in pain. If there's no pain, no blood, obviously they're possessed by the devil. That's the devil's mark, and he's interceding on their behalf.
Yeah.
And or the person screams in bloody murder and is bleeding, but well, of course they are. Well, we've got to move on to another test now because we need to dig deeper because Satan's fighting back and trying to hide the mark. So there isn't a win. There isn't a win condition. And besides
Wow.
that, the other half of that is too that a lot of these things are just made to wear the person down so they will confess. Eventually, it gets so bad that the promise of being able to die by execution is better than continuing to go through the trial.
Damn.
So it guarantees you a success rate of approaching 100.
Oh. So yeah, so for all intents and purposes, the house always wins when it comes to this shit.
Yep.
Yeah, that is such bullshit, such grade A
Yep.
bullshit. Yeah, this stuff like this is like, all I can say, this is why I'm like thinking of, all those. I think again, I was saying this to some friends around the time we were waiting in line to go see The Mummy, and I was saying like, I think the reason why I've fallen kind of out of love with a lot of superhero media is because a lot of them are about godlike figures who seem to think humanity is so worth saving that they're willing to put themselves that to come down and save us. And I'm like, and even worse is that humanity becomes so complacent, so reliant on those godlike figures that they're like saying, oh, they'll save us. And it's like, no, 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 humanity's not worth someone going that far for. It's like we need to realize that we need to better ourselves first, and it's gonna be painful, and it's gonna be hard, and it's gonna be difficult. I mean, I just recently finished watching the remake of House of Wax, and as silly as that movie is, the main character still puts herself through hell to the point where her finger gets chopped off, her mouth gets super glued shut, and she's coming out of it looking like the torches of the damned. But at least she fought through and survived, but she's still not going to be intact because that's
Yeah.
reality. That's life. Such is life. I mean, we can speculate at the end of this movie, but I think it's safe to say Richard's probably going to get executed for deserting, and
Yep.
probably even for killing Hopkins in ostensibly cold blood. And Sarah probably going to end up in, I don't know if Bedlam was around at this time, but she's probably going to get sent to Bedlam or sent
Yeah.
to, yeah.
Yeah. Whatever the equivalent of the time. Let me look up Bedlam now.
Actually, no, I think
Right in front of me.
yeah, yeah. Well, either way, I think, yeah, either way, I do know there were madhouses, and I definitely know that they were not. We talk about how badly they're done nowadays. They were even worse back then. I mean, back then they were whipped to entertain the gentry. So,
Oh wow.
huh?
1247.
Oh, Bedlam's been around that long?
Yeah. Originally was a poorhouse strictly, and then eventually became an asylum, which of course ended up being a poorhouse at the same time.
Well, because
Um,
unfortunately, a lot of the poor ended up going mad for obvious reasons. So, whether it
right.
be through disease or just hunger, so it wouldn't be surprising. So, yeah, odds are pretty good. Poor Sarah's going to wind up there at the end of
Yep.
all this because just the from the tortures, the pain she's put herself through, and even worse, just by the thought that the man she loved is now probably going to be executed. So, and even worse, watching him become full animal and just brutally murdering someone. So it's like this is not something anyone's going to walk away clean with. And I
Yeah.
love
Not
the
at
fact,
all.
yeah, and I love the fact that the film is so unashamedly nihilistic about that.
Yeah, I agree. Bedlam for as nightmarish as it is, and there's I'll say it was a Karloff film. It was really worth watching.
Was it the
Um,
terror or
I'm sorry,
was it the terror?
could be. I honestly don't remember.
Okay, I'll have to look it
Um,
up.
but so Bedlam is a really good chance, but we also have to unfortunately look at the fact that she was accused of witchcraft,
Oh yeah.
and she was mid trials during all of this. So it's even odds as to whether she ends up in an asylum or she ends up having to go through the rest of the trial to be found convicted of witchcraft and dying that way. And that might almost be the kindness.
Yeah. Oh man. That's just a horrible man. That's a horrifying
Yeah.
thought. It's a horrifying thought. So to wrap up, how about some final thoughts on Witchfinder General? I got nothing to
Um,
recover from that.
yeah, sorry.
That's okay. No, we got nothing.
No,
So
I there's a lot in this movie to point at and go, well, exploitationist crap because of, it is a very grapey film. Um, there's a lot of that. Although fortunately, we're spared seeing most of it actually on screen. But we know what happens there. The entire film is men behaving badly.
mm,
The horse traders in this movie are the entire comic relief. I love the horse traders.
mm.
The two, especially the second one, the one that's very camp. You wouldn't take two guineas for it. That
Yeah, I
guy.
was
He
supposed
was
to say,
just
Yeah, I think one of them was played by Wilford Brambell, who up to the well, no, this is after he did Hard Day's Night. Yeah, he played
Oh
Paul's
wow.
yeah, he played
I didn't
Paul's
put that together. Yeah.
yeah, he played Paul's grandfather in Hard Day's Night. And prior to that, he was in a show called Steptoe and Son. Many people don't know this, but but Sanford Son was an American adaptation of Steptoe and Son.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
And
know that either.
yeah, Wilford Brembel played the Red Fox character, the British equivalent of the Red Fox character.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'm sorry. He'll always be Paul's granddad to me in Hard Day's Night. It's such a freaking great performance in that movie. I love that. I loved his character in that
that's
movie.
that's so awesome.
He's very clean.
I love the fact that the movie is unrelenting, um, but it's still for its most part. Even once you look, even if you know the history behind it, which makes it a little bit more, yeah, it's there. It still feels like just a fast-paced action, marriage of a sword and sorcery swashbuckling type film, or your romantic story of the our beloved hero and his loyal woman and all of these things. All it's got kind of a Robin Hood feel to it in that regard. But then you've got all this absolutely horrific stuff that puts Prince John to shame. you know? um, it's great. I mean, the casting in it is fantastic. Um, it's Vincent Price at his darkest.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with. Is this would yeah, I mean, I would say yeah. Now I'm just going through my Rolodex. Yeah, I think yeah, definitely darker than Mask of the Red Death, definitely darker than Tomb of Lygia. Pretty much any of the Roger Corman Poe. Yeah, this is probably the darkest I think I've ever seen him.
Yeah,
And I love the fact that I think I just admire about Price is that he had no. I love the him, Cushing, Pleasance. I love that these were actors who completely owned their icon status as boogeymen or as icons of horror. I love the fact that I think they just knew deep down that they were getting the best roles, like the kind of roles that legitimately challenge an actor when you get a chance to play those kind of roles. And I think you only get that with horror. And I think that's why Vincent Price, I don't think I've ever seen him even for the brief span he's in Dead Heat, he's not half-assing it.
yeah, yeah. He always commits.
Yeah, he's
Um,
just wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, I love the fact that in lieu of every horrible thing he went through in the making of this movie, I love the fact that he commits to the character and then looks back on it despite everything, even being complimentary to the director who abused him, and still says that it's one of his best works. So class act all around. So
yeah,
this is for you, buddy.
yeah. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Um,
No better way to lead in. Or so as a Peter out, Witchfinder General, you can find it on Tubi, but it's under the alternate title. The American title when it was released in America was The Conqueror Worm, is what it was known at. But even then, if you search Witchfinder General on Tubi, it'll pull up the Conqueror Worm, but it'll be the same movie regardless. So just as a frame
mhm.
of reference. But I do know it. I think it's on Pluto. I think it's on all the on some of the major streaming services. But it's pretty easily accessible for everyone. So I definitely say check it out. Check it out there. But speaking of random recommendations, have you seen anything new that you want to tell everyone about?
I've got some things on my list that I want to see. I want to see Primal Darkness on Town TV. I'm really looking forward to that. I've got a screener I've still got to watch for um, Lurker.
For which one?
Lurker.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Okay, never heard of that
yeah,
one.
it's another found footage. That one's going to be coming out on Found TV, I think next month.
Okay.
Um, I'm still wanting to see the new Mummy.
I yeah, I'm gonna say I've already mentioned it in a previous episode, but I'm gonna say balls. I loved it. I had a great time with it. It's for me, I think it's one of the creepiest films I've seen this year. Um, I'm gonna say this, people, and I'm gonna be bold. There really hasn't been I mean, I'm sorry, the Karloff original is a slog. It's a slog to get through. I'm sorry. Even then, you only see Karloff in that mummy gear in like the dead beginning of the movie. After that, he's, you know, just in a, you know, in a just gown and all that. It's a slog to get through. It's not that interesting. I mean, I will agree with the masses with the Brendan Fraser's film being the most entertaining yet traditional iteration of it. But really, when you think about it, there has not been a seriously terrifying version of the Mummy. I loved what Lee Cronin did in his own personal take on this. Honestly, this had the same energy to me as Lee Winnell's Invisible Man, where they are doing their own thing with it. And because really there's no set rules on how you make a mummy terrifying, to be honest,
Right.
he's doing his own thing with it, and I freaking loved it. So I would really be intrigued to see your take on it or your own opinion on it. So I hope you see it soon. But speaking of the Universal monsters, you know what among the classics, you know which one I watched for the first time recently that I freaking loved? The Invisible Man. I finally watched the Claude Rains original.
Oh wow, I
Just
love that. That is so much fun.
oh my God. Friggin' Jack Griffin served so much cunt. I could not believe it. He is such a little bitch. I love him. The original Invisible
Here
Man
we go
is
gathering. That's a bay. That's a bay.
oh my God, he's such a bitch. I loved every minute of it. So much fun. That one, James Whale. Well, first off, I'm also going to add the special effects seriously hold up. Like, especially a lot of the in-camera effects. I was so floored by how good a lot of that still holds up.
It was amazing. And when you think about the fact they were Luma keying, that's all
Yeah.
they were doing is because Luma key always fails. It always fails. And we have never seen it. I mean, this effect using that method, we have never seen it as clean as
Mhm.
Claude Rains' Invisible Man. It has
Yeah.
never worked as well. Of course, later on we get chroma keying and all that kind of stuff, which is entirely different. Of course, that works better a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the effects for that and taking in stages right at the ending scene where you see him coming back by bits in
Mhm.
layers,
Yeah.
so well thought out, so beautifully done.
So excellent. Just everything about the movie works. I mean, and the best part is it's not unintentionally funny. The movie is legitimately bona fide funny.
Oh yeah,
And some of the excesses of the movie are just deliriously brilliant. I mean, the fact that the Invisible Man, for no real reason, no other agenda, just decides to start to cause a freaking train crash. And I'm just like, why not? Why not, dude? Just
right.
do it. Just do it.
And see, that's supposed to be the recurring thing that I feel we don't see as well again in the Universal run with the Invisible Man. The whole thing is that the drug is supposed to be is supposed to cause incredible madness, absolute
Mhm.
mania, and I
Yeah.
think they really nerfed that in the sequels. We see, the Invisible Man returns and these things.
Mhm.
Although another great Vincent Price movie, I highly recommend it. Um, but it's not as the character is much more tame in all of these sequels. But I love the absolutely gonzo nutsoid take, which is supposed to how that's supposed to go. That's
Yeah.
the entire point. So yeah,
Precisely.
I absolutely love Reigns, and I love him most in that movie.
Absolutely. So good. Yeah, that one. That one we were able to. I forget which stream service we were. I think we were able to watch it on Plex. So we were able to watch it. So for anyone who has not watched the original Invisible Man, definitely check that out. Another one in preparation for our Pride Month, we're actually going to delve into the world of lesbian vampires. So we're going to do The Hunger. We're going to do Daughters of Darkness as well. And I would try, and I'm thinking of maybe tackling the Vampire Lovers uh, as well. But in research to try to find see if there's any other ones worth mentioning, I ended up watching hilariously we watched one called The Nude Vampire, and that was a misnomer. That was a misnomer right there. First off,
I've never heard of that one.
the vampire is not nude, and it's even debatable whether or not she was even a vampire to begin with. And
Oh
second,
wow.
but we ended up watching another one called Vampiros Lesbos, That one at least was a bit more adhering to the Dracula story. I mean, that one was full-blown fetishistic. Um,
Yeah.
Definitely not of a, it definitely didn't have the fun or the elegance of Daughters of Darkness or the Vampire Lovers. There was one I did like, which I actually kind of consider like the American equivalent to Daughters of Darkness, was The Velvet Vampire.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, yeah, that one definitely came out in the hippie, like in the 70s. But that was one that had kind of, it was a very trippy film, but I feel like it was able to achieve something that a lot of these other ones just couldn't. But I don't know if I'll be covering it, but yeah, at the very least, everyone can look forward to us doing Daughters of Darkness and The Hunger. So both of those are, in my opinion, just paragons of the vampire lesbian movement.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually got to sit down on Sarah Sinn's show, the Sarah Sinn's Horror Menagerie,
Uh,
and do The Hunger.
yeah. Gorgeous
Oh,
movie.
it's so beautiful. Absolutely beautiful film.
Yeah. And, I mean, Lord knows, for anyone, if you were tentative about, about which way you swing, The Hunger is here to tell you it swing all the way, both ways. It doesn't matter. This movie will show you that it's okay because
Yep.
it's going to show you something, both Bowie's side and Susan Sarandon's side. Either way, you're just going to be like, you know what? I love everything. I'm into everything
Yep.
at that point. So, all right. So thank you very much for this, Ruby. And in fact, if you love doing this so much, I think we'll try to make this a annual thing come May time every time.
I'm game. You know how much I love my folk horror, so
Oh yeah, I adore folk horror, and I honestly can't think of anyone better who's a more substantial authority who could be able to get
that's
into
sweet.
that. So go ahead. And so for you, go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you.
So you can find me just about everywhere at Ruby Tombsday, RubyTombsday. I'm on Twitter. I'm on BlueSky. I'm not really on Slasher anymore, although I really should be. Instagram. You can find everything I'm doing is going to be on patreon.com/Ruby Tombsday.
Mhm. Yep, which
And then you
I
can
just signed
find,
up for you.
hmm?
I
I
just
guess you
signed
did,
up.
and I thank you very much for that.
No problem.
Excellent timing, by the way. Uh,
Yeah.
um, and then you can find me also on YouTube, where all the new episodes of the show are going to be going. We're just doing major tech upgrade stuff here,
Hmm.
so I'm finally going to be able to start turning out much better quality stuff, a lot easier. So we have some stuff coming up, and we may even have an in-person on-stage show in the next year or so.
Excellent.
If I can finalize this and make this happen, that'll be on the same stage that Joe Bob did his appearance here at the Parkwell Central Library on this year.
Ooh, wonderful.
So it's great big boots to fill.
Mm.
But
And speaking of upcoming appearances for you, in the month of November, we are doing Grow Up 007, our podcast miniseries, all dedicated to 007. And you brought it with a fantastic episode that we did on Live and Let Die. Definitely keep an eye on Narcotic Casserole for that. It is a spectacular episode. You brought
that was a blast.
so much to that movie that I didn't know about. So I loved doing that episode with you. So thank you so much for being a part of that. But that will be airing. Let's see, let me do the math. That will be airing on the 8th of November. Yes. Yes. The episode's queued up, ready to go. I just have to remember, oh yeah, it's November. Oh yeah, shit, those are airing. Oh crap, I gotta promote them.
I can
Oh yeah.
relate to that feeling.
Oh yeah, no. Recording has been going pretty great. I just finished uh cutting together the episode for not Octopus For Your Eyes Only. That's where we're at right now. We just recorded the episode for Your Eyes Only. I'm getting prepped. When I get back from being out of town, I'm gonna meet up with a friend to do Octopussy. So we're pretty much close to being halfway. And I'm trying to,
Awesome.
yeah, so that's where we're at. And I'm also thinking of doing I want to do some bonus episodes. I kind of want to do an episode just all about the many loves of Bond, just like kind of like do a running tally of which Bond got laid the most. That would just be fun.
For science.
Yeah, for science. Who gets laid more, Bond or the entire cast of Seinfeld? You know? And it's like, yeah, and I'm sorry, it's more realistic to me that Bond gets laid more. It's like, how the hell does George Costanza get laid so often? How? How?
I don't know. I don't know. It's the charisma equivalent of plot armor. I don't understand, but
I don't know. I don't know. There's a reason I never watched that show. Anyway, that's just a horror
same.
story in and of itself. But all right, everybody. So like I said, stay tuned soon. I'm hoping against hope for to wrap up May. I'm hoping we can try to get that episode on American Psycho ready, and then of course our 150th episode coming up, which is going to be me, Jorge, and Brian talking about doing our Maestros of Mayhem saluting Henenlotter.
Awesome.
Oh yeah. Talk about the man who kicked off this entire podcast. So, all right, everybody. If you wish to delve into the dark bowels of human imagination, ask yourself the simple question, what's in the podcast? Thank you for joining us on this edition of What's in the Podcast. If you find yourself hungry for more deep cuts into the gloriously morbid and macabre, you can also find us on TikTok, BlueSky, and YouTube at Narcotic Casserole. You can also follow us on Instagram at Narcotic Casserole 25. Follow us if you dare.